Welcome back, Rankers. This week, today, a couple of things. Google's announced a new Adwords calculation or changes to its Adwords algorithm. And I wanted to touch a little bit more on Twitter this week because I'm getting a lot of questions about Twitter and why is it important from people who have been in the industry for as long as I have. So I thought it would be a good idea if we just touched on Twitter today and explain why it's so important for your organisation to be getting involved with it. Okay, firstly, Google has announced this morning that they will be changing their AdWords algorithm. What does this mean to you? Well, if you're currently using AdWords, what this means is Google's going to make changes to the way that it calculates how much it charges you for your ads, which is pretty important, I would have thought. Now, what the biggest mistake we find that most people make with their AdWords is that they go in and they don't understand enough about the way that Google does calculate its charges. And the things that it takes into account are how many phrases you would have in a particular ad group, how those phrases relate to your ad, how well your ad is written to suit those phrases. Because what Google's trying to do with AdWords is the same as what it's trying to do with organic, and that is make sure its results in its ads are very relevant to the user's search. So if a user does a search, say on Blue Widgets Hawthorn, probably the best ad will be one that has the headline Blue Widgets Hawthorn and tells you more about Blue Widgets in the copy. And then what Google also does is they send out the bot to your landing page. And so your landing page has to be Blue Widgets Hawthorn relevant, if you like. Well, the changes that Google is making are a little bit to do with the quality score in that they're saying they're going to, rather than calculating it in advance now, they're going to calculate the quality score on the fly, which basically means that when someone does a search, they're going to work out how well suited your ad is for that particular phrase and charge you more or less based on how well they think your ad is tailored to that search. Now, the other interesting thing that they're doing is that no longer will there be the idea that you have to increase your bid to be more relevant or anything like that, or what was the thing that they used to have, your minimum bids and those sorts of things. What they're doing now is that they're going to give you the opportunity to bid to get on the front page. Now that's interesting in that they're saying that the costs will be very similar to those that users currently experience to try to buy very competitive phrases. I think it's probably going to cost even more than that. If you know, for instance, that you only have to spend $1 for a click to get on the front page, then maybe you'll just go, well, I need to be on the front page. Google says that for people who don't try to bid to get on the front page, their ads will still be shown on subsequent pages. But as we all know, no one looks at the subsequent pages, or if they do, they're certainly not looking at the ads. So what you're going to have to be careful with here is, if being on that front page is really important to you, which it would be because no one looks at any other pages, you're going to have to spend more. Now, my argument always is that, look, AdWords works, it's a good product, but what we find most people have forgotten is that organic search, or as we like to call it, free per click as opposed to pay per click, is something that you should fix up first before you go and spend money on AdWords, because your organic search or your free per click is going to deliver you traffic 24/7 without you having to spend any more money. The major difference is that organic search or free per click will cost you less the more traffic you get. AdWords, in theory, will cost you more the more traffic you get. Okay, the other thing, quickly, Twitter this week. A lot of people have asked, what is it, what it's about? Well, it's been compared to a lot of things. It's a form of, and I hate to use jargon, but it's a form of social networking. And basically, it's a bit like microblogging. I look at it as a cross between blogging, internet relay chat, and forums. And if you are familiar with any of those technologies, what Twitter does is basically I can follow people and every time they make what's called a tweet, which is a short post, it's about the size of an SMS essentially, is all you can write. Whenever any people I follow make a post, it comes up in my particular Twitter client. But what I really like about Twitter, I explained to someone, it's a bit like standing up in a crowded room and shouting out and everybody can hear you. But if you have a Twitter account and you have a Facebook account and you have a friend feed account and there's a bunch of others, whenever you make a change on Twitter, it will update your status on Facebook, it will make a post for you on your friend feed sites, and if all this is gobbledygook, we'll get to some other classes or, well, not so much classes, but we'll get to some more tutorials down the track to show you a little bit more about Twitter. But the thing I really, really love about Twitter is that you've got millions of these conversations all going on at once, people just making a post, and if people are following that person, they can reply to that post. But you can also go to the Twitter search engine and you can do a search for a particular topic. Like me, for instance, I'm interested in the US libertarian politician Ron Paul. So I can go in and set up a search in Twitter and say, just do a search on Ron Paul. But the exciting thing for me is that I can then say, I want to subscribe to that feed as an RSS feed. Now what that means is I can go to Google Reader, put it in my Google Reader, and then anytime anybody makes a post on Ron Paul anywhere in the world, I'm going to find out. I can then go to that person's Twitter page and find out what else they're interested in and maybe make a connection. Now I've already discovered probably 3 pieces of software that have been really good for search engine marketing in the last month purely through Twitter. I've had about probably 3 or 4 leads through Twitter. But what Twitter does, it's like establishing an open dialogue with your audience whenever you're online. And there's a lot of people who subscribe to the newsletter and the vlog, the video blog, and who also subscribe to Twitter. Like for instance, yesterday, they would have found out that I had a lot of trouble trying to upgrade some or update some iPhone's firmware. But we'll leave that one for another time because it's still a bit sore. And yeah, it's an open wound. But that's it for this week's show. If you have any questions about anything else, then please shoot them through and we'll see you next week.